Welcome to DS Trucks. In today's video, I want to talk about what is an F450. Now, my truck is a 2020 F450, but it is a pickup truck version, and there are some differences between the pickup truck version and the cab and chassis version. So, number one, right off the bat, the cab and chassis will give you a much higher gross vehicle weight rating compared to the pickup truck version, which is actually derated down to 14,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating, which is the same as an F350 dually. Now, it's kind of interesting because the F450 dually has a lower payload than the F350 dually, and that is because it has some of the components of an F450 cab and chassis, but doesn't have the higher gross vehicle weight rating. And I think that is because of certain licensing in different states. They wanted to, for whatever reason, keep the gross vehicle weight rating relatively low, and I think it has to do with the guys who tow RVs and things like that. So the pickup truck version does give you a lower gross vehicle weight rating, but it still gives you a really high tow rating, which is kind of a interesting situation when you think about it. The payload on this truck isn't that high, so your gooseneck and fifth wheel towing actually can run into some payload issues pretty quickly. Now, it does share the same springs as an F350 pickup truck dually. Now, the axles are heavier duty than the F350, and the front end does have the wide track front axle, which gives you the fender flares up front, and pretty much underneath the axles you are an F450, but from the springs up you're very similar to an F350 pickup truck. And when you're in a pickup truck form, now when you're in a cab and chassis form, things are a little bit different. F450 cab and chassis is a true F450. Now, the cab and chassis does have a different frame section in the rear, which is more suitable for upfitters. It has a straight frame in the rear where upfitters are easy. It's easier for upfitters to put their ambulance boxes, their dump beds, whatever you might want to put on a cab and chassis truck. They also have a derated engine on the cab and chassis version and a different exhaust filtering system. Now, the derated engine on the cab and chassis version isn't going to give you all the horsepower and torque that's advertised with the pickup truck version. And if you think about it, the pickup truck version of this truck is in a horsepower and torque war between Dodge and Chevy. They're always fighting to have the highest numbers, which is less of a concern in the cab and chassis version. That version of this truck is more concerned about reliability versus max horsepower and torque. Now, what makes the pickup truck version of the F450 and F450, and why would you want to get this over just an F350? So, standard for the F450 is a limited slip 430 gear in the rear, which is nice to have. It kind of has its pros and cons though. It means your RPMs are a little bit higher on the freeway, and that can be something that hurts you if you're never towing. If you're never towing, your RPMs are higher on the freeway. You're about 2250 RPMs on the freeway with at about 80 miles an hour, and you know that's not terrible, but it does mean a little bit less MPG on the highway when you're not towing. Actually might help your MPG if you are towing heavy, but a little bit less MPG when you're not towing. And it's not the best for acceleration and all that. It's just, I don't know, the diesel is a low revving engine. It's got low end power, and it's not hooking up and it's not putting down that kind of power. It really will spin the wheels before you can really accelerate quickly. And I don't think it's faster with the 430 gear. It's probably faster with like a 3.55 rear gear or something else. It just doesn't have the traction anyway for that to be a advantageous gear as far as speed and things like that. It's just good for towing. It's just good for towing. So if you're not towing, the 430 gear I think hurts you a little bit. But what else makes this an F450 compared to the F350? It does have bigger brakes like an F450. So that is definite advantage. The 19.5 inch aluminum wheels are standard on the F450 pickup truck version of this truck. The 19.5 inch Alcoa tires, which a lot of people have pointed out that these aren't real Alcoa tires. I'm not sure, but my experience so far with these tires have been pretty good. I've been plowing snow in these first year plowing snow, and they are holding up well. But F350 wheels will not fit on an F450 because an F450 is a 10 lug wheel and the brakes are bigger and they will not accommodate a smaller rim. So F450s have bigger brakes and it has a 10 lug wheel, a 430 gear. But once you get to the leaf springs, from the leaf springs up, it is the same as an F350 dually pickup. So is it worth the upgrade? An F350 versus an F450? I think it is. I think the resale is going to be better on the F450, just because of the wide track front axle. I do think the wide track front axle is a wonderful front end to drive, especially in the city. It turns really easily, guys. The way that it steers and the way that it pivots around turns. Not only does it turn tighter, it turns easier. They actually put a little bit less caster in the front axle with the wide track, and it's just easier to turn. Like, you barely have to put any effort into turning it, and it definitely drives different. It took me a little while to get used to. It felt like it wandered a little bit on the highway, but after a year of driving the truck, I'm used to how it drives on the highway. It does seem like you have to pay attention a little bit more to make sure you're staying in your lane, because it can tend to want to kind of wander a little bit, but I've gotten used to it and I don't notice it anymore. After putting 10,000 miles on the truck, I don't notice the front end wandering anymore. I don't know if it's broken in or, like I said, I've just gotten used to it, but it just, the turning radius is good, but the actual steering effort to put in to actually turn a truck is lower. It requires less steering effort. So kind of similar to an F350 in terms of capacities. Now, the max towing compared to an F350 is much higher, but an F350 is going to give you significantly more payload, being that they share the same gross vehicle weight rating, and this truck has heavier duty axles, which actually take away from the gross vehicle weight rating. Now, that being said, I've had this truck maxed out as far as the 14,000 pounds is concerned. I've had this truck maxed out quite a lot of times, and when you're at that 14,000 pound limit on this truck, it is no factor. It just wants more weight. It's not struggling. It's not stressed. It's not, the suspension doesn't feel like it's overwhelmed. Now, compared to my F250 with a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight rating, that truck at its maximum at 10,000 pounds, it kind of feels like, whoa, we're getting heavy. Oh, it's getting heavy. Not the case with the F450 when it's at its max gross vehicle weight rating, which is higher than the F250. Now, those heavy duty axles, the 430 gears, the diesel engine standard on the F450 pickup truck version, but on the cabin chassis version, you can actually get a gasoline engine. You can get the 7.3 liter in the cabin chassis version. But Ford knows how to get you with the pickup trucks. They kind of set these up to be a little bit more expensive. Gas engines are not optional on the pickup truck versions, but they are optional on the cabin chassis versions. But this is our F450. This is where we are so far with the truck. What we've done is we've put the extended running boards on. These are OEM from Ford, and it gives you this little step that you can stand on. I know it's kind of dark and hard to see, but you can actually stand on that right there. But what's interesting about this is we actually have the kick panel on the truck where it says Super Duty down there. I know it's hard to see, but we actually have the kick panel on the truck, and I did that custom. Another thing that we did is we put lights on our running boards here. Let's turn on this upfitter switch. Let's see here. All right, so we put lights on our running boards. Boom. And as you can see, it lights up, and that's just right there at the end of the running board, and it makes it easier to see your dualies at night. So that's another cool mod that we did. We do have the rubber mat, the rubber Super Duty mat here in the bed, which is nice. And inside the truck, we have our tack form phone mount. As you can see, it is mounted right here. Got our phone up on the dashboard. It's real nice how that works out. That's there. It's got a action camera mount right there. Along here in the back, let's take a look at the back here. Other side. For some reason that door is not unlocking, but keyless entry. Take a look here at the back. We have a built right seat mounting system, and I know it's getting dark, it's hard to see. You'll have to check out a different video when it's more light. But we just finished our 3,000 watt power inverter here in the rear seat section. So if you like this kind of content, check out DS Trucks. Thank you for watching. My name is Sean. See you in the next video. Over and out.